Thanks for joining us, and today we're going to talk about Kriya Yoga and progressive absorption. So in Kriya Yoga and in yoga, we refer to absorption as dhyan, to become absorbed in one's inner meditative experiences. And Kriya Yoga provides a systematic way to start to get into absorbed states, into deep meditative states. Now, primarily with Kriya Yoga, you're using a practice which is the bread and butter of Kriya, which is Kriya Pranayama. Kriya Pranayama is a form of intentional breathing that starts to bring you into a low idle state. And it does this because it is leveraging the body's parasympathetic nervous system. So in the body's central nervous system, you have a sympathetic nervous system, which is about activating the body to do things, and the parasympathetic nervous system, which is about bringing you into a low idle state. Using a particular meditation practice like Kriya Yoga that leverages the parasympathetic nervous system brings you into a low idle state. So there's a physiological response to doing Kriya Pranayama. And in yoga, this is called pratyahara, which means internalization, and this comes from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. So in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, this is a prerequisite for getting into a meditative state, is feeling of this internalization. Now in Kriya Yoga, we're using Kriya Pranayama as the primary mechanism to get us into a low idle state, to get us into pratyahara, and then we start to experience signs of this freeze response or the galvanic skin response. So we may feel our hands hot and heavy, we can feel pulsation or tingling throughout the body. This is a feeling where we're starting to get a sense withdrawal. This is very different from meditation practices where you're trying to have a blank mind or you're trying to stop your thoughts. Kriya Yoga doesn't do that. What it does is it leverages the body's parasympathetic nervous system. And then you start to get these signs of the internalization of pratyahara. Consequently, what happens when Kriya Yoga starts to have an effect on your body is you feel the sensations in your body. It's different. It's not the same feelings that you had pre-meditation. So the body starts to feel different. It starts to feel lighter, ephemeral, if you will. It starts to feel tingly. The regular sensations that you make up the bodily awareness of start to change. This is the beginning of a state called paravasta in Kriya. It's an effect, the after effect of Kriya, where you start to notice these signs, right? Paravasta being one of them. And so you're using the biggest handle in the room, the most expedient way to get into meditation by bringing your body into a low idle state. So with Kriya Pranayama, what you start to have is you have effects in the body as you start to feel the Paravasta state, the beginnings of the freeze response. You start to feel a change in your breathing pattern, right? Your breath naturally starts to transition to being more slight. And your mind starts to become more clear from having thoughts all over the place where you're distracted by this and that, and you're thinking about things in the past and future and so on. That starts to become more still. So the mind gets more still, the breath becomes more subtle, and the bodily sensations change, right? You may feel tingling all over your body and so on as you start to transition into a deeper state. Now, what happens in Kriya Yoga? Normally we would engage in Kriya Pranayama, which helps to induce all of those things, internalization and so on. And then also we engage in a process of kumbhaka, and kumbhaka is breath retention. So basically holding the breath at the top of the inhalation. Kriya Yoga uses a particular way of doing that called yoni mudra, and yoni mudra engages that kumbhaka. The effect of Kriya Pranayama followed by a kumbhaka type technique like yoni mudra starts to edge us toward an absorbed state in meditation, what we call dhyan. The kumbhaka helps to nudge us towards the tranquil breath, which is basically where the breath starts to shallow out and then it disappears. And what happens when one gets into the tranquil breath is that the body basically starts to recede from our awareness entirely. The parasympathetic nervous system is fully engaged. Our breath rate is very, very slow. Our heart rate has dropped down, our blood pressure has dropped down, and we start to get into this very deep state called dharana. And dharana could be described as internalized concentration or concentration on an internalized void. It's like being in a room of complete blackness where you don't have a reference point. You are very still, you are very calm, you are very peaceful and very relaxed. The mind is equanimous. It is very still. You could have thoughts, but you're not distracted by them. It's like being in a giant chamber where you're not hearing feedback from your environment. And so this is very conducive. It's a jumping off point into deeper states of absorption. And so Kriya Yoga is ingenious because it allows us to go beyond body consciousness, right, to start to be drawn within. And then we get into this staging ground, this dharana, this deep internalized state where it's like this blackness. And that is the jumping off point where we start to move into the formless, into perceptions of the formless. And so there are some Kriya Yoga schools that advocate for looking for particular spiritual artifacts, for instance, the spiritual eye or the kutastha, or all sorts of things, trying to see a tunnel, trying to concentrate on the point between the eyebrows, the third eye, etc. All of those things actually impede your ability to move into successive, deeper levels of absorption. You want progressive absorption. That once you set the stage with your Kriya Pranayama and other practices like the Kumbhaka, the Yoni Mudra, and so on, that you start to have the feelings in the body of the Paravasta, that the breath starts to change, that the feelings in the body starts to change, that the stillness of the mind starts to change. But this is really about being aware of the progressive states of absorption as they occur. Now, there's the idea in some Kriya yogis and other yogic schools where they will talk about, that you need to be looking for bliss, right? Bliss is an aspect of absorption. It's a stage, if you will, that you can get into, the feeling of this limitless joy in all directions, or a feeling of limitless space, infinite expansion. And all of those are states of absorption. One may say that when they've reached their full saturation point of any particular manifestation, for instance, infinite space, that constitutes a samadhi. People as well may experience inner visions, so they may see their Ishta Devata, right? The form of the divine that they hold in reverence. They may see that. They may feel themselves becoming one with that, and that is a samadhi of merging with that concept of the divine. But these particular experiences, inner experiences, are transitory. They arise and pass away. And the point in meditation, the point in one's sadhana is not to get stuck at the stages so that you can't progress, but to allow the meditation to unfold naturally. And that is why Lahiri Baba called it Sahaja Yoga, which means natural yoga. It means being born together, the feeling of this naturalness that arises in your meditation, that you will sail effortlessly through a meditative state, through progressive states of absorption to deeper and deeper levels of awareness. So it goes beyond the ideas about, Satchitananda, the idea about being in this perpetual bliss state. It goes beyond that because that is really a transitory stage in one's meditation absorption. And so in meditation, especially when you get into the formless realms, if you're trying to hold on to a particular state, for example, this perpetual bliss, you are really holding yourself back from transitioning deeper into a progressively absorbed state. So letting go of those fetters, if you will, those impediments that come up in your meditation is really key to meditative success. And this leads one towards awakening, enlightenment, or the true perception of reality. So if you have any questions about this video, feel free to send me an email at info@modernkriya.com. Also check our website at modernkriya.com and our YouTube channel. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.